Hey, how's it going everybody? Welcome back to Aussie Fish Keeping. So in today's video, I'm going to be giving you guys 5 reasons you need a bristlenose in your aquarium. So bristlenose catfish are obviously a super common little species of aquarium fish. They're very popular for beginners just because a lot of the time they are sold as a cleaner fish, which I guess they are sort of a cleaner fish. They do help a lot with cleaning your aquarium, and that's actually something we'll get into a little bit later in the video. But they're also just a super great little fish to have in your aquarium. They're very peaceful, very easy to care for. They don't require too much attention. And yeah, they're definitely just one of the greatest aquarium fish you could get for your aquarium, particularly if you are a beginner. But yeah, I don't want to spoil too much, so let's just jump straight into today's video with the first benefit of having a bristlenose. So the first benefit on our list today, I briefly literally just mentioned it, it's algae control. So this one is obvious. They are a sucking mouth catfish, so they have that mouth that's designed to suck onto surfaces and scrape off any algae or biofilm that's actually growing on them. And like I said, this is one of the reasons a lot of beginners get them, but I do also think it's a little bit misleading. So when they're sold as a cleaner fish, a lot of the time beginners, I find, think that you can just throw them in your aquarium and they can just eat the algae and live off that. However, they do definitely need their own specialized diet, so you're gonna want to be feeding them things like zucchini, green beans, algae wafers, even some frozen foods and other sinking pellets are essential to add into their diet every now and then. In a big enough aquarium, you could probably get away with just leaving them be, particularly if there's plenty of food that sinks to the bottom and there's plenty of algae growing throughout the aquarium. Then they should have enough, but that would have to be a pretty large sized aquarium. So as for the types of algae these guys will eat, they won't eat like green water, because I don't know if any fish eat green water. That's a little bit weird. But they're going to eat any of that surface algae. So things like brown surface algae, green surface algae, green dust algae, any of that algae that actually grows on your glass. So I don't actually have much, but there's a little bit in this tank. You can see, I think, there's a little bit of algae growing on that glass there. And that's the sort of algae that these bristlenose will actually eat. They're not going to eat any like blackbeard algae, thread algae, or like I said, green water algae. And this obviously helps a lot. It means you don't have to get in there and scrape the glass as much. And a lot of the time, if you have a lot of algae in your aquarium and you're wanting to put a bristlenose in, the best thing to actually do is to scrape down the glass just once. That way, once you put the bristlenose in there, it's a lot easier for the bristlenose to control the algae. Whereas if you just throw it in an aquarium that's fully like plastered with algae, the bristlenose is gonna have more work to do. It's gonna have to go eat like so much algae. Whereas if you do scrape it, only little bits will grow at a time and the bristlenose will be able to take care of that accordingly. But yeah, with that being said, algae control is definitely one of the main benefits that comes with having a bristlenose. Moving on to the next benefit on our list, this is another reason they're a great cleaner fish, and that's detritus disturbance. So what I mean by this is obviously you get a little bit of detritus building up on the top layer of your substrate or even in your substrate every now and then. And detritus is things like leftover food or decaying organic matter that's been broken down into like this little brown glob. And if it is stirred up into your water, it can actually cause your water to look very cloudy, and even worse, if it builds up too much, it can cause ammonia spikes and imbalances in the nitrogen cycle, which can lead to a whole load of problems with your fish and your aquarium in general. But what the bristlenose will do is, because they're relatively bottom dwelling, so they'll most of the time be around that bottom section of your aquarium, they'll swim past or swim through this detritus, and that'll actually kick it up into the water column, and that'll make it so much easier for your filter to suck up. And they'll do the same sort of thing with leftover food. So if food sinks down to the bottom, obviously they'll eat a little bit of it, but they're also kicking that up into the water column as well, and that makes it more accessible for other fish. So if you have some like mid to top dwelling fish and the bristlenose are kicking up any leftover food back up into the water column, those guys may see that and eat that, but it'll also mean the filter can suck it up a lot easier, and that just minimizes the risk of it actually breaking down and turning into detritus. Another thing this can actually do is they may actually dig in your substrate every now and then, not often just because they're not really prone to do that, but when they brush over the surface, that can just sift your substrate a little bit, so that can kick the detritus out of your substrate, but it can actually also minimize the risk of any toxic gas bubbles building up in your substrate, particularly if you have a really dense substrate like dirt or sand. And those toxic gas bubbles, if they build up for too long and they're released, they can kill your fish. So the bristlenose just gently going over the substrate every now and then will just help loosen up the substrate and help those toxic gas bubbles just seep out slowly and not even form in the first place. And these two things alone obviously improve your water quality. So like I said, it's going to minimize the risk of any ammonia spikes or imbalances in the nitrogen cycle, but it's also going to make sure your water stays nice and crystal clear and you don't have any little particles floating around in your water column. And this can just make fish keeping a whole lot more fun. It means you don't have to clean your aquarium as regularly, which can be super helpful, particularly if you're busy. Literally just need to get a bristlenose and put it in your aquarium and it will help a heap. But yeah, with that being said, detritus disturbance is another great benefit that comes with keeping these guys in your aquarium. Moving on to the next benefit on our list, this sort of goes hand in hand with one of my previous videos, and that's that these guys can actually act as a dither fish. So if you've seen one of my previous videos, I don't know how long ago it was, I think it was maybe 1 or 2 videos ago, I talked about why you need dither fish in your aquarium. There's a whole bunch of benefits to that. I'll leave that video linked up the top, but basically bristlenose do make the perfect dither fish. And if you don't know what a dither fish is, it's literally just like a spare sort of fish you throw in your aquarium, and it can help trigger breeding, it can help minimize aggression, and it can help fish feel a lot less stressed in your aquarium as well. So because bristlenose are a relatively bold fish and they're not really scared too easily, as soon as you put them in your aquarium, they'll just settle in straight away. They'll come out the next day and feed, and that can encourage other fish, maybe more shy fish in your aquarium, to come out as well. So that can reduce stress in your aquarium. And along with that, because these guys are an armored catfish, they're super hardy and they can actually take quite a beating from other fish. So they're great to have with cichlids and things, just to reduce aggression in your aquarium. So if you have some very fragile fish, you can chuck a bristlenose in there and the bristlenose will sort of just take the attention off those fragile fish. It obviously won't be like getting absolutely pounded, and if it is, you should take it out of your aquarium, but it's good to just divert a little bit of that aggression every now and then. And like I said, because they're armored, it doesn't really affect them too much, so they can be great dither fish for those reasons. But yeah, with that being said, using them as a dither fish is definitely another great benefit that can come with keeping these guys. Okay, so moving on to the next benefit on our list, it's that they're just a peaceful fish in general. So these guys are compatible with a whole range of aquarium fish. They can go with the smallest little cherry shrimp all the way up to African cichlids, as long as they're of a decent size, of course. But they're not aggressive whatsoever, so they're never gonna like nip at your fish. I don't even really know if they can, to be honest. The only sort of aggression I've heard, which I don't even know if it is aggression, but I have heard that sometimes in discus tanks, if you have these guys, they can suck to the side of your discus, which can, I don't know, mess with their slime coat or something. So you probably don't want that, and you may need to do a little bit more research if you're looking to keep them with discus. But for the most part, they're very peaceful. They're not going to nip at your fish. They're not going to like fight your fish in any way, and they really do more good than bad in your aquarium. But yeah, I thought I'd just slip this one onto the list just because it is sort of another benefit of keeping these guys. I mean, you can keep them with a lot of aquarium fish. But yeah, with that being said, their peaceful nature is definitely another great benefit of keeping them. And then moving on to the final benefit on our list, it's that these guys are just super easy to care for. So again, I sort of briefly mentioned this at the start, but they are literally probably one of the easiest fish to care for. They don't really need to be heated. Obviously, it's recommended that you heat them, and a lot of fish, but they will survive unheated and they'll thrive unheated, I guess. And I've never had any trouble with keeping these guys unheated whatsoever. So some of the things that make them so easy to care for is they can go in a variety of water parameters. They're super hardy. They don't require like an absolutely crazy diet, and you can literally feed them things out of your fridge, which is absolutely insane. No other fish really can do that. So yeah, they can survive in a lot of water parameters, which means they can go in all sorts of pHs, all sorts of temperatures. As long as it's not too cold or too hot or too acidic or too basic, they should be fine. So most of the time you're going to want to keep them about 6 to 7.5, even up to 8, although I wouldn't try and go 7.5 to 8. And then as for the temperature, they can go perfectly fine in anything from about 18 to 20 all the way up to about 26 to 28 degrees Celsius. Again, I wouldn't go too high or too low. I'd try and just smack bang in the middle around 20 to 22 degrees. As for them being hardy, obviously I mentioned it earlier as well, they have a super peaceful nature and they're great for diverting aggression onto them. So again, like I've said for probably the 50th time, they are an armored catfish, but you do want to look out for this. You don't want them to be just absolutely like destroyed every day, because I mean, that's not a fun life for them then. But yeah, as for the final reason that they're easy to care for, it's because of their diet. So again, like I mentioned at the beginning, they literally will eat anything. So So they'll eat glass growing on your algae. I mean, algae growing on your glass, they'll eat biofilm growing on your glass or on like botanicals and other things in your aquarium. They'll eat leftover pellets or flake foods that sink to the bottom, and they'll obviously eat things like green beans, zucchini, spinach, any sort of those green vegetables are perfect little things to supplement their diet with. And it's great if you run out of food and maybe you need to wait till the weekend to buy some. You can just feed them like zucchini, cucumber, things like that, just to keep them full in the meantime. But yeah, with that being said, being just absolutely easy to care for is the final benefit to keeping these guys in your aquarium. So that is actually going to bring us to the end of today's video. I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope this video helps a few of you guys out. Obviously, I have missed out a whole lot of benefits, and if there's any that you know of, please make sure to go down and leave them in the comments. I'll make sure to go down there and take a look, and I'll add them to my list of other benefits. But yeah, if you did enjoy today's video, please make sure to go down and subscribe, and while you're down there, smash the like button and comment your thoughts on today's video. I always love going down there and reading them all, and I try to reply back to as many as I can. Also, if you haven't done so already, make sure to go check out my website, aussiefishkeeping.com. I've actually got a few of these guys available. So I've got just your regular common bristlenose up there for $5 at the moment, which is relatively cheap, and I've also got some long fins up there for $8, which is once again super cheap. But obviously I've got other fish on there. I've got some botanicals and other aquarium products as well. But yeah, with that being said, I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in that next video.